Gaming platforms in the country have garnered scale in the last 3 years. Gaming has now become a part of the Gen Z culture, and the gatekeepers have accepted it. However, scale without retention is like bone without flesh. Acquiring a customer is tough, but retaining her is even more difficult. With options available, users are likely to hop or bounce to be more technical. Two important aspects that drive higher retention are customer experience and cybersecurity. This brings us to our next fireside chat, decoding the mandatory minimums when it comes to customer experience and cybersecurity. I would like to invite Saumya Jain, etbrandequity.com, to moderate the fireside chat between Mr. Rajat Bansal, CTO, Games 24/7, and Mr. Mitesh Gangar, co-founder and director, PlayerzPot. Welcome, everyone. Over to you, Saumya.
Thanks a lot, Annie, for the introduction. The gaming industry has evolved in leaps and bounds from the time of arcade games to video games and to now online gaming. This surge of growth has been further triggered by the COVID-19 pandemic, which acted as a catalyst, giving the world of gaming the necessary push towards the rapid high. However, alongside this spectacular growth comes some perils attached. With the gaming industry sitting on a hotbed of coveted data, vast amounts of instances of personally identified information and credit card information of gamers worldwide, the responsibility of the industry to protect this information and ensure that the platforms are safe environment for gamers lies on the companies now. Dear attendees, we have with us leaders from the top players in the ecosystem, and they need no further introduction. Please join me in welcoming Rajat Bansal, Chief Technology Officer, Games 24/7, and Mitesh Gangar, Co-founder and Director of PlayerzPot. Welcome, Mitesh. Welcome, Rajat.
Thank you, Saumya. Thanks for inviting us.
Great. So I'm excited to just jump into this. So my first question, it's basically a icebreaker, right? So in the gaming industry, what is that one change, especially in the last 2-3 years, that has excited you the most?
Okay, I can take that. So to me, like this is a very, very exciting time for gaming ecosystem overall as such. Over last 2-3 years, what we've seen is a significant increase in consumption of online content, and gaming being one of the key pillars on that. And what has, like, if I have to say one thing that has changed, is the increased trust that users have in the gaming or in the online gaming ecosystem, and that is leading to a very dramatic increase in number of paid users on the platform. Our industry is poised, like we are currently 2 billion plus. Many survey shows that this will go multifold in next few years, and it's a pretty exciting time to serve the most engaging content. To me, the increased trust is the key that has happened over the last 2-3 years, which has helped in adoption.
Like you said, Rajat, I will come back to the word trust, right? Like you mentioned, it's increasing. So with trust, there comes a big responsibility as well. But first, Mitesh, I would like to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah. So like Rajat mentioned, like the users have grown multifold. But one thing what feel exciting for me is the age group has been extended. Previously, like before 2-3 years or before like maybe like 5 years, there were core gamers who were into the gaming. But right now, like in the advancement of the digital technologies and the use of smartphones, all the childhood games which were available, which were played physically, are now online available, which helps user to keep in touch with their peers, play online, all the casual games, the card games, and everything. So like during lockdown also, like if you have observed that the gaming industry has grown far in those times, whereas like the only entertainment source available was the gaming, since like you were locked down at your home itself. But in those times also, like people were connected with each other via gaming. And yeah, so the introduction of casual the board games and the card games, again back to the digital one, has insignificantly grown the age group targets. And like right now, like right from my grandfather to father to me, or like even I say my grandmom to mom and to my sisters, everyone is hooked to some of the other games, and like the gaming industry has evolved.
Agree. Gaming has, I think, brought out the child in all of us again. So
Yeah.
agree, 100% agree on that. So I move on to the initial remarks, right? Like Rajat mentioned the trust factor, right? So with trust comes a lot of responsibility, and like Rajat mentioned that a lot of paid users are increasing, and even I think as per reports, like we have 4 million gamers in India, I think as of now, and so how big of a when it comes to trust, right? How big of a problem is cybersecurity? Like like the topic mentions, right, that cybersecurity is the mandatory minimum today. So how big of a problem is cybersecurity when it comes to gaming, and how critical it is for a good customer experience? So Mitesh, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So, when we say about the customer experience and the cybersecurity, so I just want to mention, like, if cybersecurity is inculcated from the day one of the foundation of the application or a game, then like customer experience automatically improves, because it regains a trust factor, and like the onus remains on the company to maintain all the personal data of the user. Like each data developed or gained from the user is a responsibility of the company to maintain its security. So right from the KYC or from the any physical information or the financial information which is with the company, so company needs to take care utmost of how to prevent the misuse of the data, how to diligently use the data so that the personalization and the personalization comes and user experience is improved.
Great, thank you. Rajat, your thoughts?
No, I think definitely like with trust comes accountability. And like one of the things that you will observe for gaming is the rate of growth. Now, what that does is, since the user or the industry, the number of users we are acquiring, industry is growing at a phenomenal pace, it also puts a great pressure on building new features, or timelines for those new features are becoming shorter and shorter. Now, like with that kind of a growth, like any other internet industry, and the amount of information exchange that's happening over the wire, the company like Games 24/7 needs, like, for us, security becomes a very key aspect. And the security itself has multiple attack vectors. Like, for example, we need to make sure that our systems are always available to our users. We are a skill-based company, and like we want that availability to be 100%. So how do we make systems which can handle attack vectors like DDoS, which can attack vectors like impersonalization, like credential stuffing, impersonation? Uh, how do we give a fair gaming platform and attack things like collusion, etc. there? So it's essential to prevent or like protect these customers from various attack vectors there. And at Games 24/7, to us, that trust is P0, and over that is what we build any good customer experience. We have implemented multi-layered security protocols. Like we work with cloud service providers to prevent volumetric attack at layer 4. Or in a way, we have web application firewall for layer 7. We have in-house data science teams that are trying to build models that can prevent and detect any abnormal behavior, and that can prevent bad actors from coming into a system. So it's like availability, customer data, and as well as trying to identify the bad actors on all aspects. We need to have systems in place.
Great. So, Mitesh, what Rajat said, that, there are a lot of systems in place that Game 24/7 has put in their, system. So, coming to you on that, so what are the best recommended practices according to you, which should be implemented around cybersecurity? And, taking instance from your company, can you share those?
So today in world of digital, like there are cyber attacks happening day in and out. Like so, a company must like, first of all, there are few guidelines provided by the government of India that all the financial data and each and every data should be in the mainland of India itself, and we need to store each and every data on the servers which are located in India itself, so that like no data is gone out of India, and each and every backup is also like stored in the Indian territory itself. Apart from that, like picking up a good hosting provider, service provider is a very essential thing, and we very much relies on that, so that like the availability of your uptime is dependent on that hosting provider, and the security itself is also our first level of security is dependent on that hosting provider. Apart from that, like on that hosting provider, we can implement various firewalls where we can like stop various attacks like DDoS attacks or any other attacks, and high strong SLL and certifications must be provided, so that a proper infrastructure is created, so that a regular attacker would not be able to compromise the system. Apart from this, like a proper monitoring team should be there, so that like each and every moves on the server would be recorded, and proper alerts would be provided, so that like when a attack is being done, so like in a minimum time your team comes to know about it, and you are at the rescue of the attack, and you can try to prevent the attack, and minimum data loss has to be happened. So these are the like few provisions which we have made at our for our servers, and we are maintaining those.
Great. So, like both of you mentioned that there are different types of there's not just one type of fraud that happens on gaming, right? So there's identity fraud, credit card fraud, and even I think one thing which I read, which was quite curious to me, that there was stealing of virtual goods and from gaming platforms, which is also kind of a big crime. So can you a little bit on that, how this happens and how are you avoiding the stealing of virtual goods from players?
So for that, like we have already like whenever the user registers, so like whenever user comes on to the app, from that step itself, a data monitoring happens at our end. So there are various traces what we can find out. Like if it's a virtual bot, then like the IP addresses would be the same, the devices would be the same. From one particular device, many logins would have been happened. So this all has been tracked at real time, and before the start of the game we trace all those things, and like we have kept a minimum score level. If that score level is breached, then we like immediately stop that user from playing, and we kept it for a suspicious, we mark them as a suspicious, and physically a member of our team like checks all the activity, and then only like if like still the activity has been fair enough, then we allow the users. But more frequently, like we like block those users, and we never allowed them to play. So we do at a real time instant, like Rajat has mentioned, like a data team is always up, and fraud team is always there who traces all these movements of the user via their IP address, via their locations, via their device information, via their payment details. So we kind of come to know like are these users real users, or like a virtual bot implemented by someone to play.
Right. So Rajat, coming to you, like both of you mentioned data, right? Data today, not just for gaming industry. I think data regulation is a big topic. And like Mitesh mentioned, right, that there are a lot of regulations in place that the Indian data cannot be stored out of India, right? And recently, I think in 2020, I think almost 300 apps were banned because of this same issue. And two of them being big games at BGMI and 4G games, which were banned in India. So, two parts to it, Rajat. So, first of all, how are you ensuring that, especially data, like you mentioned, that data is becoming something that people don't want to part with because they're not sure of how safe and secure data is. So, how are you getting people to give their data and, ensuring that it's a safe transaction? And secondly, how does Indian gaming industry rate compared to the global level when it comes to data security and data, regulations?
Sure. So let me first answer your first part of the question, which is like, what is Games 24/7 doing about it? Like most of the companies, we are also hosted on cloud, but like we have made sure that we comply to the Indian regulations where our regions are in India, all our data is hosted in India. And we overlay that with a lot of like in terms of security processes, both from an external surface perspective and internal surface. When I say external surface perspective, this is like the servers that are exposed to the outside one, where you can ping them over internet. So there we work with cloud service providers. We use the techs that are available. Like for example, we are on AWS. So we use AWS Advanced Shield to filter out any volumetric attacks. Then we go a level deeper. We have our own set of rules where we monitor the data and say that this seems like unnatural traffic. So we have anomaly detection algorithms in place, which will look at every access to a system and say this seems suspicious, and we constantly monitor and block that traffic there. So these are some of the external factors that we try to protect against. Now, many a times, what companies do not realize is there is always an internal factor at play, and that's where things like security awareness training comes in. Because many times, like we focus just on systems and like tech systems, and we forget about processes and people. So we have a very well-defined policies around security awareness. What is the incident response looks like? How do we record it? How do we use it for learning there? And how do we minimize the external surface there? Combination of these two gives us a very high confidence infrastructure and people where we can protect customers' data and maintain that trust. Coming to a second question about how India as an ecosystem is growing. So good part is India has made tremendous progress in that space of cybersecurity. If you look at ITU's Global Cyber Index, which came out in 2020, 2021, India was ranked 10th on that, which was 37 ranks higher than the previous rating. And that global index actually rates India, like that has 5 aspects, like what are organizational measures in place, what are legal measures in place, what are the technical measures, capacity and cooperation. Combination of all those 5 places India at now rank 10 instead of like which is 37 ranks higher. Even our ministry of IT and certain, like they came up with very recently in April 2022, they came up with recommendations to say that how to handle cyber incidents and what are organization responsibilities to protect and manage that data. Good part was at Games 24/7, since we are already focusing a lot of that, we are almost compliant from day one. It's just like we had to just set up some reporting mechanism and we were always compliant. But it's very healthy to see that even from like regulation perspective, there's a lot of focus on increasing cybersecurity awareness and responsibilities with the various companies. And certain requirements were one step in that direction there. So it's a combination of what organization works from external, internal perspective and how regulatory framework is evolving, which is helping India to be better placed on those things. We are still not number 1. So hopefully we'll see that pretty soon.
Great. So like, what Mitesh mentioned, right? That day one, you should focus on cyber security. So I guess both of you guys are sorted in that way, right? You guys are focusing on cyber security. So one of the interesting points which you mentioned was that, awareness about cyber security. So for people and processes, right? That there's technology, but we forget about the people and processes part. So when it comes to awareness, do you mean when you say people, is it all consumers as well? Like for consumers, gamers like us, do you mean consumers as well? Is there enough awareness in them about cybersecurity or the threats they can face while playing?
See, like there, I'll say that like we as platform providers need to take that responsibility from consumer to say that like how do we even prevent that mistake from happening there? Like because again, pushing it to customer to say that being security aware is not a right solution there. But at the same time, we implement features or mechanisms that help them achieve, not do the wrong thing. For example, authentication or authorization, or like, can we automatically detect if some abnormal pattern is observed in the customer's account and flag it automatically. So I'll still say that responsibility lies on the organization or gaming platform provider, then customer. Yes, we should be always educating if something bad is happening, but responsibility of preventing bad from happening is to me is still with the platform provider like us.
Great, thank you. So I think we should moving on to the second, mandatory minimum, which is customer experience. So Mitesh, we say that it is a mandatory minimum, but on ground and in reality, how important is CX and UX also to some extent you know when you're creating your strategy of a brand? What does it bring to the table for brands like you?
So when CX comes to a part, the customer experience, I'll frame it as a complete cycle, and it starts from the user experience. So when I say about the user experience, so it all starts about like when he or she, whenever they say they look upon the advertise or they come to know about a certain application or a game, and then they download, and the first screen that comes up. So from there onwards, a cycle starts. So from there onwards, like the only aim of the company is that this particular user who has right now downloaded the app should stay for a longer time. And yeah, this is the only motto which covers everything. Like all the business aspects are covered with from there. From a user's point of view, or the user experience is covered. And at any point of time where the user drops, like so that's a point of investigation for the company, and like something or the other, the CX is not proper for user. So so when I say like there is a cycle involved in it, so like it's not only about the usage, but like wherever there are drops that needs to be investigated. If customers are facing something, a proper portal should be provided where they can lodge their feedbacks, lodge their complaints, lodge their reports, which needs to be taken in account, and accordingly those things should be incorporated in the next release or next build. So like we at PlayerzPot, like we have complete like 24/7 customer care center, like where the turnaround time of the resolving queries are very minimum. We keep it like almost like a real time, but we keep it as a very minimum, and so that this also helps at somewhere or the other at the customer experience. So customer feels related that yes, someone is listening to us, and like it not about the complaints only, but we there are many features which we have gained from the users itself. Like users have recommended that such options should be available, so such things should be available, and with that feedback, like we have actually incorporated many of these features. So like I mentioned, like this completes a cycle, like where user also has a say that what they wants, and it is reaching to the company, and like company is acting on it. So a complete CX cycle ends, and yes, customer experience should be always like a user centric. If user centric, like when I started, I mentioned like if it is user centric, the more the time the customer will will engage on the app, and more the time the customer engages, the automatically it is a win-win situation for a business itself.
So, like mentioned, right, CX is important, but so what kind, you're saying incorporating, customer feedback. So, what kind of business results have you seen, like not in terms of the bottom line, not just bottom line, and of the customer retention rates and all of those metrics. So, what are the results you have seen when you improve, deliver great customer experience?
Okay. So, like if I say about PlayerzPot, I'll just give an example, a small example of it. So right now, like we are on our app, we have a fantasy sports. When we started, like the PlayerzPot, it was a completely fantasy sports app. And during lockdown, we introduced casual games and the card games also. So right now, it's a super app of fantasy plus casual games plus card games. So in all, like we have like 9 sports in fantasy, 15 casual games, 3 card games. So like, but every user's choice is different. So we have came up with a home screen which automatically recommends based on the past user experiences Like if a certain user is playing more of a rummy or more of a poker, so whenever they open up the game, they'll first see the rummy and the poker as the first instance where like so so we know that this user would be like interested in those games, and at the lower levels we place out the other games which are which may be liked by the customer or may not, but so that the time of searching that app or time of reaching out to that particular game, since they're like we do have like a more 20 plus games on our portal, so that becomes very important for us. Like we do not want if a person who comes on the portal just wants to play a rummy game and they are navigating through the screen and they are locating the rummy and so we wanted to reduce that time. So this is a customer centric, and like due to that, like we have actually regained our non-performing games also to a performing games when we started targeting those games at top. So those games which were lying at the bottom, and like we started promoting them to the top, so at least customers tried playing like it is in the top on the front zone, so they at least tried and say, and this has helped in the business metrics and the customer retention metrics also. I just want to add since it is a fantasy, like we also have fantasy games, so like whenever there is a IPL match going on. So the time between the match starts at 7:30. The time is very crucial at from 7:15 to 7:30. During that time, all the users are active over the platform, and we need to multiply our scalability and everything. At that time, we just at the time the people trend is to join the megapods. So megapods are low joining fee and multiple users can join in. So we always keep those pods at the front itself, so that time is not wasted and user enters the pod immediately, because the time is very crucial. 15 minutes of time, user needs to create a team, user needs to edit the team, and then join the leagues. So so from that front, yeah. So personally, personification of the personalization of the personification is we say at our we use this at many times in our company. So this is a thing that has helped us in regaining the customer experience and of course the business metrics also.
You know what you said, personalizing the personification, right? That is a good thing. So before we move to concluding remarks, so Rajat, I have one last question for you. So, to personalize, to deliver the right message at the right time and to the right person, data is one of the key core to it, right? So how are you leveraging data to, bring customers back who have abandoned your, platform, or who are not spending enough time on it or getting engaged? So how are you leveraging data to send that targeted messages?
No, definitely. Data today is ubiquitous. It's nothing is without data. And what I'll try to take a slightly different approach to that question around that knowing our customer well is the core to run our business there. And it's not about bringing a customer back. I'll say the science of gaming is predicting that this customer is going to churn out. It's not about bringing it back. Yes, you need to have mechanisms to bring back, and we have enough of them. But I'll walk you through in terms of how we approach our engagement and why we are able to be successful the way we are. So we believe, even if you go to our website, we believe to our heart that at heart we are a tech company with science of gaming as a focus. And how do we leverage science for each and every step in the customer's journey then? Now, people talk about personalization. To me, personalization can be based on demographic factors like region, age, and in India, it becomes even more significant because the behaviors vary by region. What we believe is personalization is just one key, but the beauty is how do you achieve hyper personalization? How do you overlay this personalization, marry it with individual preferences? I know that, okay, a player from a particular region in India, by default in that region, pool rummy works better, or a particular variant of rummy better. But when that then user enters it, does he like to play a 1 rupee game or a 5 rupee game? Where should the slider be? Can I go that deep to personalize that experience where you don't even feel that it's personalized, but it's actually predicting what you will like to do there? As we do that, we have a big team of scientists actually that works very closely with tech to build models and algorithms to say that how do we give this experience? And then when your question was, okay, if I have given a bad experience, I should be able to predict that what gameplay that or what actions user is taking points me to that this user will churn out. And how do we proactively engage user even before churning out? If a user has churned out, we do have very large-scale distributed system that we have built where I know that, okay, this user has seen 1, 2, 3 bad experiences. User likes to participate in tournaments. How do I reach out to the channel of his choice, whether it's SMS, email, or in-game notification, give him a tournament ticket, which is free to bring him back to the platform. But to me, that's like a more reactive approach. The more proactive approach is you should be able to predict that this customer is going to churn out and prevent that from happening while the customer is on the platform. And for that to happen, data is the key. So we believe, true to our heart of science of gaming, that data is ubiquitous, data is democratized in the company where all teams can work together to provide that experience to the customer.
Great. That is such a nice thing to hear that, brands have to be agile and, rather than being proactive, they have to be active.
Yeah.
So, before closing, one last question and just a small question. So what is that one problem that you would like to solve for your customers? Just one.
I will still say that, like, how do I continuously innovate to raise the bar on providing this most engaging, hyper-personalized experience there? Because it's again, like, there's always this thing to say that, like, we have set something as a standard in industry. How do we raise the bar and compete against us to provide a much better hyper-personalized experience? So it's, to me, you ask for one, it's like, how do I keep raising the bar on providing that engaging experience?
Great. Mitesh, your thoughts?
Yeah, so one thing like we would like to solve is to continuously evolve in reducing the frauds. Like since the technology has evolved so much over the globe, the fraud activities has been increased tremendously, and at every level we would strive hard to reduce this. And currently, like, we are in place to restrict them, but when we say about the future, the advancements are we don't know like what else or the fraud types could be there. So in terms of cybersecurity, we would always be like to be on top and reduce this fraud and like ultimately give a good gaming experience to the user.
Great. Thank you so much, both of you. I wish we had more time to get into this, but that's it for today. And I'm sure, like me, our audience learned a lot. Thank you, Mitesh. Thank you, Rajat, for joining us so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for an engrossing chat session. Let's move to the next panel discussion. Stay tuned and keep tweeting using the hashtag ET Gaming Summit.